Welcome to another episode. And now, Dr. Aaron Bryant.
One of the things is I noticed that you're also a member of the American Legion. You said you reached out to others, but you were a part of the Legion back in Hollywood, number 43.
Yes.
And still are. Okay, so do me a favor. Let's shift gears just for a little while because I know we want to get into the organization or get into the TV show. But I'm curious a little bit about, it's not too often I have a woman vet from an era as yourself. So you have parents that were veterans, and then you yourself was a veteran. So can you talk and give an audience some perspective of what that was like? One, as a veteran child of two parents that were vets at that time, and then transition into the story of when you were a veteran and the things that you went through as military active duty. I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Okay, very good. Well, I'm actually a Marine Corps brat, and I was born in Camp Pendleton, and my mother was in the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps during World War II. And my father and my stepfather were Marine Corps lifers, if you will. They loved being Marines. And so let's see, how can I explain this? When I was born, I was born premature. I weighed like less than 2 pounds when I was born. So I was in the hospital at Camp Pendleton for 3 months. But during that time, before I was born and right after I was born, my parents' marriage fell apart. And my mother fell in love with another Marine. So that was Shaffer. Shaffer is my stepfather. My real father, his name is James Clarence Hoke. So by the time I was out of the hospital, my mother had already divorced my father and married my stepfather. So my stepfather raised me from the time I was 6 months old, because my stepfather and my father, let's just say, they didn't want to have any contact with me.
Well, yeah.
So it was being that without getting into a lot of real personal detail, we had some issues growing up of being stepchildren. But be that as it may, in spite of all the drama, you know, growing up in the military, I guess I loved it because I joined it as soon as I could. And I wanted to be part of that because we never wanted for anything. We had everything we needed. My parents always had a house for us. We lived all over the United States, mainly in California, but we have lived in other parts of the country. And my parents, they were World War II veterans. They were disabled veterans. They all had their own issues. And still, in spite of that, for me, joining the military, it was just a natural move because I was born into it. I was raised in it. It was just a natural decision as far as that goes.
You're in an all-women's type military, so did you not have to deal with any kind of chauvinistic behavior?
Oh, no, are you kidding me? Are you kidding? That was just the way it was. I mean, there was always the cat calling. I mean, you know, it's always, no matter the environment, men versus girls or women versus men or men versus women, however you want to put it, there's always that underlying, I'm not sure the right word to say, but there's that.
Well, you had to be. I would imagine that the men probably didn't even want you in the military because they felt that it was a men's thing to do.
That is true. That is true, and that is something that was especially true then, because I went in the Army in 1960. I graduated from Oceana High School in 1967. And a year later, I went into the Army because my parents didn't have the money to send me to college, and I wanted to go.
Yeah,
Basically,
yeah.
that's why I went in. I wanted to go to college on the GI Bill.
Okay.
Um,
So you ended up, so let's move forward and let's talk about the you obviously, like you said, you got out, used the GI Bill, went to school, came back home. You returned to the state of California to work at EDD. Now, I'm imagining that you obviously helping veterans was the job that you got to do again when you returned to EDD. Was that your, in addition to processing unemployment applications, was it kind of a dual role, or which one did you do first or second or third?
Okay, well, that's a great question because at the time, and I think they still do it this way, when you apply for the employment program representative is what the state of California calls it.
Mm-hmm.
In EDD lingo, it's EPR, employment program representative. But you can be an EPR, an unemployment insurance or disability insurance. So when I first started with EDD, I worked as an EPR and unemployment insurance. And back then, this was before computers, so everything was color-coded and done manually. So people would come into the office. We would deal with them one-on-one in person up at a window. They would mail in their claims if there was a decision that needed to be made on whether somebody was eligible to collect unemployment insurance or not. Another part of the EPR program, they had people that made those decisions, and they usually had some kind of a legal background. They were called determination interviewers. I never did that. I was happy to let everybody have their unemployment, but there are times when you can't do that because there are rules that you have to follow as a state,
right?
So that was okay for the time that I did it. But when I went back to the EDD my last time to do it, they put me on 6 months probation doing unemployment insurance. So after I passed that probation, they asked me, if you could pick any job in the office, what would you want to do? And you know what I said to them? I always wanted to work in job service and help people get jobs. Well, the next week I started in job service because they didn't want to lose me. I passed the probation of the unemployment insurance. They knew that I knew the unemployment insurance because I had worked in it for years. But the ability to help people, so they put me in job service, and I was like a duck to water. I'll tell you what, it was so much fun. I used to, before I became a vet, I was in job service for a year before I became a vet rep. But during that year, everybody that came to my desk, I made this little file system that made no sense to anybody but me. And I would keep the resumes. I would go home at night, and right before I would go to sleep, I would all of a sudden, you're not awake, but you're not asleep. You're like in between, you know what I'm saying? I would, all of a sudden, I'd sit up and I'd say, oh my God, so-and-so is just perfect for this job. I could not wait to get to work. To call them up and say, hey, this is Sheryl from the job service. I think I found you the perfect job. And I'll tell you what, that's why they made me the vet rep.
Well, yeah, it's very rewarding.
Like me, because I got so many people jobs. It's like, oh, well, you need to help the veterans. I mean, if you're going to be doing this with all these people, we gotta make you a vet rep and when they made me the vet rep, I thought just working in job service and getting people jobs is one thing. That's a great job. But when they made me the vet rep, that job changed my life.
I hope you have been enjoying the show. Well, do not go anywhere just yet. We have a continuing episode with Dr. Bryant Speaks.